to our next panelist, Mr. Mushtaq Rahim, Director of Salmon Group. Please come and present your article.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, Steady Mashi. Thank God I'm second last, because I know had I been the last one, then it would have been extremely difficult to convince everybody that I have something to share with these saturated minds, which have already been filled with a lot of information since morning. I'm going to talk, my paper is basically focused on India's contribution, or India and Afghanistan's cultural relationship building through education exchange programs in the contemporary relations that we have maintained over the course of last 16 years. So I'll be talking from that perspective. And when I was starting my paper, I also referred to the Kabuliwala. That has become such a shahkar, as we say in both languages, the word that we share, that nobody can start without Kabuliwala, talking about the cultural relation of the two countries. But we all know that while Kabuliwala was written in 1892, we share centuries-old people-to-people communication in this region. This is only that late Tagore brought it into a certain literature framework. But focusing on the relation, I'll be talking about the contemporary relation and our diplomatic relation between the two countries was started based on the Treaty of Friendship in 1950. And one thing that we relish when it comes to the cultural and diplomatic relation between Afghanistan and India is that in an era where there was Cold Wars, where there were proxies being used by the countries all around this region, India and Afghanistan maintained state-to-state relationship. It was not about proxies, it was not about using third parties, it was not interfering in each other's affairs. And that is something that these two countries can take pride in during the last 60 years. And then we have the Strategic Partnership Agreement of 2011, where we again have a formal framework for the relationship between the two countries. However, no matter how good your diplomatic relation remains, the cultural relation, and as the terminology and the literature is evolving in the area of cultural diplomacy, remains key to any state-to-state or nation-to-nation relationship. And that is where we really need to concentrate on building these cultural relations and further strengthening them, further expanding them. And why do we need that? Why are we talking since morning about the culture, and we are going to have 1 week-long cultural programs to make sure that we find the commonalities between the two cultures and also try to build these relationships further. The basic reason is that the dynamics in the region that these two countries are placed in are changing. The socio-economic dynamics, the socio-political dynamics have been changing every single day. We come to know about the Chinese engagement in the area, where they're trying to create a hegemony of economy in this region. They want to encroach every available space of all nations at the expense of every small and big nation. We all know that our region is faced with the challenge of extremism and militancy. A region that was known for non-violence movements is now changing into suicide bombings region, a region where militancy takes over all legitimate state actors. And we are budding economies. India is trying to establish itself as an economy that has a status in the world, and Afghanistan is trying to get back on its own feet, economically, politically, and socially. In such a scenario, there is need for building these relations, and particularly cultural relations, in order to face these dynamics. What does it have for the both nations? Why do we really need it? The need is that, from one side, India has been engaged in Afghanistan in development sector. They have contributed in every single sector. Take it from building the parliament building or the Salma Dam, bringing thousands of Afghan youth, allowing them to have their higher education completed, to the agriculture specialists come over and learn from India. So Afghanistan will continue to rely on the Indian economy, Indian democracy, Indian civil society for building back home. On the other hand, India needs to reach to the Central Asia. We are talking about projects like TAPI, the Turkmenistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India project. We are talking about transfer of energy from the Central Asia. And we are talking about helping India reach to Central Asia and through there to Europe. The true way, the mutual needs are present. And that's why the two nations really need to come together and build this relation. And again, cultural relationship between the people, because it's not the governments that shape the policies, that shape the diplomatic strategies, but it's the general public that really helps or really shapes these strategies and policies. And that is why the public of the two countries really need to come together and come closer. In that regard, we have found out that over the course of last 16 years, education programs have played significant role by bringing the people of two nations together. I was watching Kabuliwala, where every mother was telling the child that stay away from these Kabuliwalas, otherwise they will put you in their, what do you call it, in their sacks, and they will take you away. They were scared of the Afghans. And then a guy came in and really told them it's not the case. In recent past, because of the civil war, because of the all problems that we have had back home, there have been an image of that Kabuliwala among the people. And that was the Afghan students who came in here and told the youth of the Indian nation that Afghans are as good as any other human being on the face of earth. And there has been an unbreakable relationship built. Wherever I have studied, even for one day, I have an emotional attachment to that place. And the students who have been here for 3 to 5 or sometimes more than that, they have an emotional attachment to the people of India. We have now Indian students asking for Kabuli Palau. We have students knowing Ahmad Zahir of Afghanistan. Of course, back home, we have always listened to Lata Mangeshkar, to all the way to today's new music, new generation. So what was the basis for all this? The education exchange program, where thousands of youth came in, stayed in the same hostel, studied in the same classroom, allowing them to intermingle culturally, socially, and academically, and share a common space where they can really come closer to one another. And that has happened. So what I believe that we really need to further this exchange program. But the problem with that is that we have had only people coming from Afghanistan, as it was referred to, the one-way traffic. It has been in terms of exchange as well, one-way traffic, where only Afghans have been coming here, and due to certain reasons, Indians have not been able to travel back to Afghanistan. I can assure you it's not as bad as World is One News, the CNN, the BBC is reporting here. The need is that we really need to change this perception. And for that, these cultural weeks should be working for helping the Indians go to Kabul and visit Bagh-e-Babar in Kabul, visit Paghman and many other places that we have, if not in the provincial centers. And that will help us further expedite the process of cultural linkage between the two nations, which will ultimately, as I said earlier, help the two countries come socio-economically, socio-politically much closer than they are, helping the development process. But this whole process is not without challenges, actually. First and foremost is our neighbors. And two of them can always be quoted as main people who are concerned about it. First is Pakistan, and the second one is China. Whenever there's talk about Indo-Afghan relationship, the concern, the worry is that it's a sort of conspiracy against the nations. There is an effort to encircle those nations. There is a conspiracy to really derail the development projects that are being considered, which we need to really address. We cannot remain isolated from these concerns, because at the end of the day, this is going to challenge the progress that we are making. So we have to find out ways in order to really address their concerns, that it's not about them, but it's about the mutual benefits of the general public of the region. And then we have the issue of continuity at most of the times. We have the current governments, the Afghan government and Indian government, who are interested in building and strengthening these bilateral relationships. But most of the times, as soon as the government changes, the plans change, and the change of plans change really the course of action that we decide and we agree upon. I think we have to find a way where we can continue this process, and for that we really need to concentrate on starting doing these cultural weeks once in a year, every year, once in Kabul and once in Delhi, and maybe we can shift it to other provinces as well. And then we have to really work towards bringing or making the cultural diplomacy part of the foreign policy of the two nations, if we really want to achieve the ultimate result, that is bringing the two nations for the prosperity, development, and security of the whole region. Because when it comes about Afghanistan and India, I have a belief that if we work together, it will not only benefit the two nations, but the whole region, because we are, from the population perspective as well as from geographic perspective. Why I always refer to geography of Afghanistan? Because we are not as big a country or economy like India, but we have as vital role to play as like India plays in the region. So in order to achieve this ultimate goal, we really need to continue this process. I thank you for your attention towards the end of the day, and I know I have spoke more than I should have at this time of the day. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mushtaq Rahim. Actually, I will reserve my comments about your article for conclusion. And I'm fortunate that I'm part of panelists who have given very practical suggestions. And basically, I think they are involved in this process. And these are very useful things, and I'll discuss about later. And now I'm calling